Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am with you on Sunday, August 9th, in the year 2026, in beautiful, lovely, breezy Escazú, Costa Rica. And we have a beautiful week coming up with a powerful eclipse. So let's get into it and see what's happening. So the eclipse is Wednesday. It is a solar eclipse. This means it is a new moon. It is a new moon in the sign of Leo at 20 degrees 2 minutes. And solar eclipses are always a new moon, and lunar eclipses are always a full moon. But they are close to the nodes. They are connected to the nodes, and when the sun and the moon are connected to the nodes, that's when we have eclipses. That means by conjunction or opposition. That doesn't mean by square or trine or sextile. It means one of the planets or both of the planets are close to the node by conjunction. So if the sun is close to the node and the moon is opposite, as in a full moon, as in a lunar eclipse that we'll have in a couple weeks, then one of them is close to the south node and the other one is close to the north node. And this one, they are both close to the node, but they are close to the south node in Leo. What does that mean? It means that even though this is a solar eclipse, which we think of as a new moon and new things and starting something new and stepping into power and yeah, to a certain degree, sure. But what this really means is the south node is where old habits die hard. And you've heard me say that before many times on this podcast. And it is where we have overused techniques, energies, creativity, in Leo, creativity, and where we have overused our energy in some way, where we're relying on things that have been useful to us before and that worked before. But it's not necessarily the case when we have a south node eclipse. It means that we can acknowledge what those things were, how they have served us, and take the wisdom from that and go forward in a new way on a new path. What version of yourself have you been running on repeat? Or what version of your skills, abilities, creativity, Leo creativity, what have you been running on repeat because it once worked and it doesn't really need to run anymore? We are always reluctant to give up the south node energies because it's our thing. It's what we know. It's what we do. It's what we've relied on. And in this case, when there's an eclipse there, we are being allowed to see what we've relied on and what doesn't work anymore. And it doesn't mean that, components of it don't work. And it also doesn't mean that what we did before is useless. It worked for a while, and now we're going forward into a new way in such a way that we don't need to perform that anymore. We need to look towards something innovative, which is the North Node in Aquarius, okay? So we can recognize and release at this South Node eclipse all the things that ran on repeat and aren't really working for us anymore, or they're not fresh anymore, okay? So we want to tap into the new unique voice that is emerging at this time. Because if something is being released at the South Node, you can bet that something new is coming over the horizon at the North Node. And it doesn't mean throw everything out the window. It means take your time developing the new unique voice, because it's not like what you've done before hasn't prepared you for this. It has prepared you for this. It's just asking that you step forward with security into a more unique expression of yourself that is not old, that's newer, fresher, and perhaps a little exciting now. It doesn't mean that what once worked is never going to work again. It's just that we take the wisdom from that and move forward into a new place with it, okay? Update it, refresh it. I don't have a dark feeling about this eclipse, maybe because it's close to Jupiter, but I feel like it has brought some things out of the underworld, at least in my life, the last few days. We're already in the eclipse period. And I'm like, the creatures are coming out of the woodwork. What's this? Friday morning, my cat was in the garden. I let her into the garden. I'm making her breakfast. I'm preparing her plate. And she's out in the garden for the first time. And she stopped in one corner of the garden. She's pawing something. And I'm like, oh, God, what has she got? And I step out there, and it's a dead rodent. A dead rodent. And it was like, I don't know, a mouse, a small rat. I don't know what it was, but I just said, oh no, you're not doing this. Get away from that. And she wasn't the one that killed it. Somebody else killed it. But it's like, oh yeah, underworld eclipse energy. Thank you, because that was the first incident. And I, managed to get her away from it and then dump the thing in the river and blah, blah, blah. But today, Sunday, I was in the house, and she was outside. I had been outside with her, and I stepped back in for a minute, and I see her run out the gate very excitedly, and I'm like, oh God, who's she going to beat up now? And I'm thinking she's going to go to one of the cats and yell at them or whatever, like she does. So I grab my key, and I grab the bottle of water to spray just in case I have to break up a fight. And the one other cat, Bugatti, was on the bridge, and I'm like, oh, he's fine. He's just watching her. What is she doing? She jumped off the riverbank onto the platform, like the stone platform in the river. She jumped, leaped into the river. And I'm like, what is she doing? And I was calling to her, and she's on this platform in the river, and she's messing with something. And I'm like, what is she doing? And I keep calling her. She leaps back up from the platform to the riverbank by the fence, and this is why she's got a little scratch in her back, because she keeps going under this nasty fence. And this has to be, I don't know, a 3-foot, 4-foot leap she did. So she had a mouse in her mouth, and I'm like, no, not more rodent vermin coming out of the underworld. And she comes trotting along. I said, you are not bringing that thing into my house. You better not bring that thing into my house. And so I thought it was dead, and it wasn't. There was a whole chase that ensued. I'm very glad her hunting skills, her chasing skills are intact and very much alive and well within her. I didn't need another rodent vermin sighting this weekend. So things are coming out from the underworld, and things were, I had a wacky day yesterday with my friends. It was very funny. There were some very wacky things, but it's a little bit hilarious, wacky energy that I think, and Jupiter and Leo can do that, and it could be very funny and very lively, and that's what I've definitely been feeling. But definitely the vermin. I said to myself this afternoon, I'm like sitting here going, okay, what am I feeling about this eclipse? And I'm like, what is this vermin that's coming? It's the dark of the moon, and I guess it's the dark coming forward, in between the dark and the light. So, and that's what eclipses do. They take us to the dark, things go dark, and then we see the light afterwards. The sun's light will be eclipsed by the moon. Now, the moon is in Cancer right now, and it's not reached Leo yet, and it's going to actually be void all day tomorrow. So right now, the moon's not void on Sunday early evening, but it's going to square Saturn from Cancer to Aries tomorrow at 3:30 a.m. Eastern time, and then it's going void. And then when it goes void, it's going to be void in Cancer in its own sign until it enters Leo at 4:38 a.m. Eastern time Tuesday morning. So that's a 25-hour void. And so we're all void all day tomorrow night, and then when we get up on Tuesday morning in our region of the world, if you were listening to me in our region of the world, then we will see that the moon is no longer void. It's in Leo, and it's headed toward that eclipse. The eclipse is going to occur on Wednesday at 1:37 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be the moon conjunct the sun, and then the moon does go void again right after that eclipse. So the eclipse will occur, the moon will go void, it will be void again for the rest of Wednesday, into Thursday when the moon enters Virgo at 6:18 a.m. Eastern time. So it's not a full 24-hour void again, 25-hour void like tomorrow, but it will be a long void after the eclipse. We'll be marinating in that new moon energy, and we'll be having a real, experience of that because our friend Mercury is also in Leo. So now we're going to have a number of planets in Leo that day because Mercury has entered Leo as of today. So we'll have the Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, and the Moon all in Leo, and the South Node, of course. And so Mercury going into this new sign for itself in Leo is going to do the same thing that Jupiter did a few weeks ago, and the same thing the Sun did after a week of, following Jupiter. Mercury's going to do the same thing. So Mercury is going to follow that same line of aspect patterns. And the first one will be that on Tuesday, Mercury will oppose Pluto. Okay, it's going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius at 9:20 p.m. It's all going to be in the evening on Tuesday. And then Mercury in Leo will trine Neptune in Aries at 11:39 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the next day, Mercury in Leo will sextile Uranus in Gemini at 4:48 p.m. So over that 24-hour period, Mercury is going to take up the same activity that both Jupiter and the Sun have done, and connecting with that cosmic basket that's now starting to not be as tight of an aspect between all the planets. Jupiter is no longer really involved in that. It's now 6 degrees away from the opposition with Pluto. Uranus is at 5, Pluto is at 3, and Neptune is at 4 of each of the signs they're in. And so they're not all at 4 degrees like they once were a few weeks ago. So it's starting to, break up a little bit, but they're still hovering, as I said they would, and they would be for months. And it doesn't mean that they are not talking to each other anymore. It just means that it's not that intense conversation they had a few weeks ago. And Mercury is now going to tie it all together again this week. So we have more information to glean from this. We have more information to gather from this, and to really experience in maybe the creative intellectual sense, because Mercury is an intellect planet, is a planet of the mind. So we want to pay close attention once again as we get closer to this eclipse. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Pay attention to what you can give up and what no longer works for you. Pay attention to the experience that you're having as far as Mercury talking to those planets the way it is, and like what interesting information would come forward for you in this dynamic, especially since Mercury is doing all of this while it's eclipse time, so while we're gearing up for the eclipse, while the moon is in Leo, Mercury is going to be connecting to all the outer planets and eventually Jupiter this week, the way the Sun did, the way Jupiter did a few weeks ago. But remember, the moon is going into Leo also on Tuesday, and that means the moon is following the same course that Jupiter did, that the Sun did, that Mercury is going to do later on Tuesday. So the moon is going to hit all these planets first. First of all, the moon is going to conjunct Mercury at 9:41 a.m. on Tuesday. Then the moon is going to oppose Pluto. Then it's going to trine Neptune. Then it's going to sextile Venus. Then it's going to sextile Uranus. It's doing the same thing. Then the moon's going to conjunct Jupiter by 8:01 p.m. Okay? Tuesday's a long list of aspects, and what it's doing is it's connecting all the outer planets before Mercury does, and then it's going to connect with the Sun, the moon, and we're going to have the eclipse. But those planets are going to be hot and heated on Tuesday as they all first get the moon, and then they get Mercury, and then the eclipse happens. So it's not a week of, oh yeah, it's an eclipse and nothing's happening right before that. It's like a big gear up for the eclipse, The eclipse is not at the degree that the outer planets are. So it's not connecting with them, but the moon will pass over those degrees and connect with the outer planets before it makes the conjunction with the sun. And then Mercury will do that prior to the eclipse as well. So I really feel like between Tuesday and Wednesday, we have some very hot aspects, right? And then what's going to happen, Mercury later in the week is going to conjunct Jupiter at 7:23 a.m. on Saturday, the 15th. And that's Mother's Day here in Costa Rica. That would be Mother's Day. And it is a beautiful aspect to have on Mother's Day. So we're going to have a party here in the garden. So I'm very happy about that. In the meantime, our friend Venus, which has just entered Libra the other day, and I said she was going to do a whole lot of dancing between Libra and Scorpio. And if you missed that, that was last week's podcast. I'm talking about how she's going to retrograde and she's going to be moving between Libra and Scorpio, and she's going to be squaring Pluto 3 times. Okay, she's starting her journey. So planets in Libra naturally start getting involved with the outer planets as well, because tomorrow she is going to make the trine to Pluto in Aquarius. So this is from the air signs. Venus in Libra is going to trine Pluto in Aquarius, and this is a very good balance of creative and intense energy. Okay, let's fall in love. Let's be, friends. Let's connect creatively. Let's do some deep thinking together. Lots of good, juicy stuff when Venus and Pluto are trying to one another. And then Venus will oppose Neptune tomorrow at 6:02 p.m. Eastern Time. This is naturally the next step in touching the outer planets. So she's going to oppose Neptune. And she won't get to trine Uranus until Tuesday night at 11:46 p.m. And there's that Tuesday again where so much is going on. But I want to stop with Neptune for a moment because it's the opposition. And because she's in Libra, she's opposing the Aries planets that we've had this year. And she's not going to get to Saturn just yet. But the more important thing is she's opposing Neptune tomorrow. Venus and Neptune are often really a creative, intuitive, beautiful process. It is seeing the beauty. It is a vision of beauty. It is a vision of light and sensitivity and connection. And it's kind of interesting because on the one hand, it's all of that. And it is dreams and hopes and heart opening for sure. And then it's illusion, delusion, somehow being fooled. It could be any of those things because we're dealing with the opposition. So there's this beautiful vision. And I mean, if you're working on a design piece, sure, this is something that could really work out very, very well. And if you've got creative projects on the fire, well, then that's terrific. But it's really something that's very gorgeous in the spiritual realms and in the realm of creativity and art. So it's a good day to go to a museum, day to go see a film, because Neptune rules film. It's a good day to do any of those things. Maybe do a little design for your home. Maybe do some things that were very deeply connected to spirit as well. Like this, it's not just art and design. It could be, you're going to a retreat, you're going to a spiritual gathering, you're going to a Reiki group or something, or you're going to have a healing session with someone. And when we look at this Venus Neptune, the thing that I think stands out the most is being misaligned with someone you might start dating. Like if you meet someone, you think they're all that, and then it's like, oh my God, I got blinded by Neptune. I got blinded by the Neptune that I was thinking I was like wildly in love and this is a great new thing. And it was the same old story. Remember, it's an eclipse. So be very careful with this energy. Be discerning. And that's what Venus Neptune asks us to be. At the same time, it's asking us to open our heart. So if your heart's been closed and you're just, no, thank you, and you're like giving up on love and all that, Neptune's coming along to say, hey, don't give up. You have a lot to offer. You have a lot to give. Open your heart. There's lots of love in the world for you. But at the same time, don't get involved with, the wrong kind of character or someone that you would know would be wrong for you. And if intuitively the red flags are coming up, well, then you want to pay attention to that. It doesn't mean you're definitely going to fall in love. It could mean you have a very pleasant day with friends, So just be discerning with Venus Neptune always. And Mars Neptune also. Don't trust people, when we are in situations that we think we should trust somebody, but we're not feeling good about it. You got to trust your gut. Speaking of our friend Mars is going into the sign of Cancer on Tuesday. Again, something else is happening on Tuesday, the 11th, 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. Mars goes into Cancer, and Mars is the warrior planet. Mars is the initiation planet, the planet of confidence, the planet that is the ruler of Aries and is at its exaltation in the sign of Capricorn. That means when it goes into Cancer, the opposite sign of Capricorn, it's not terribly fond of Cancer. It doesn't work in the sign of Cancer. And it's really very at odds with the sign of Cancer. It's not in its best place. So it's not in the best place of expressing itself directly. Cancer is a little more pensive, quiet, steps back, doesn't reveal so much, a little more private. Mars doesn't want to necessarily be private. Mars wants to go out and shout it from the rooftops, but it's definitely an experience that we need to, again, use some discernment. Mars is in Cancer at the 0 degrees cardinal point when it enters. And that means, again, that 0 degrees cardinal point is getting triggered by Mars. And so it went in Aries a few months back. But Saturn and Neptune, a war started when they were at 0 degrees cardinal, 0 degrees Aries, and now 0 degrees Cancer is being triggered by the warrior planet Mars. So there may be some things in the news this week that might be intense or heavy and, really very much about triggering those same energies that we've been experiencing since earlier this year when that Saturn and Neptune met at 0 degrees Aries. Every time something hits 0 degrees of one of the cardinal planets, that would be Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, or Aries, we're going to get reminded now because that was a famous point. Now, Aries is the obvious famous point because of those two planets, but also, on the cardinal axis, the 0 degrees is always getting triggered and it's going to be a reminder. So it's a little harder to see when the moon is there. The moon's in Cancer now. It probably whizzes by that point so quickly that we're not paying attention necessarily. It's like more of the same in the news. But when Mars comes and sits there for a day or so, or a day or two, it's really asking us to sort of digest a whole new level of what was going on with that Saturn Neptune, okay? And now we're in Cancer, Mars is in Cancer, and they're very different from one another. Mars being very active and assertive, and Cancer being more passive, ruled by the moon. And again, this is an eclipse. We're at a solar eclipse, and yes, this is the sun we're talking about. The sun is being eclipsed, but it's where the moon goes that where we position the eclipse. The eclipse is solar because the moon is coming to the sun. In 2 weeks, it's lunar because the moon is opposing the sun. But it's where the moon is that governs what the eclipse is and where it is, okay? And the moon rules the sign of Cancer. So there's an eclipse. Lunar ruled Cancer is getting Mars. And so this is very excitable energy over these next days. But that should not affect you necessarily in the most negative of ways. It's just, eclipses are high energy. They bring emotions to the table. So we want to sit with this energy and not really allow it to, overwhelm us. We want to stay grounded during this time. So I think the best use of this eclipse energy is to really sit with yourself and ask yourself, what is it that you'd like to leave behind that no longer really serves you in going forward, and trust the new, gently stepping into the sensation of what energy is unique to you. And, maybe you've been afraid to take a step forward and do something different because what you've done already has worked so well for so long. And maybe you need to believe in yourself a little more so that you feel secure enough to take a step forward into a new voice of uniqueness. I want to mention love relationships here because the South Node is in Leo, the eclipse is in Leo, Jupiter is in Leo, and the eclipse being at the South Node, a lot of times with your relationships, and here we are with this Venus Neptune hanging around this week too. Relationships in the dynamic of the nodes, this can really affect our relationships because it's an axis. It's me versus you, and not necessarily just personal love relationships, but also friendships and things. The South Node in Leo wants all sorts of love and limerence and the expression and experience of falling in love and the delight of all of that. And maybe they're raising the love object to a pedestal, and really they need to be friends first. And this is what I always learned about the South Node in Leo, or the 5th house, and the North Node in Aquarius, or the 11th house. You really need, under these circumstances with that South Node in Leo and the North Node in Aquarius, now they're going to be together there in the next year and a half, you really want to see the friendship angle of your love relationships. Okay, you want to see that you can be friends with this person and fall in love with them. You have to fall in love with your best friend, And I've said this before about these nodes on this podcast, and I want you to just take that seriously as we move into a Venus-Neptune opposition with a South Node Leo eclipse. It could be all excitement and newness and honeymoon period, and then, it's like the air goes out of the balloon. So just be aware of that. Again, discernment. But really, the friendship is what counts. Okay, the friendship with the person is where you really want to build the relationship, and you'll naturally fall madly in love with each other. Okay, but if you build the friendship and you're co-creators of the relationship, then you can go together and enjoy all the lovey-dovey Leo stuff that happens, right? So imagine what it would be like to be in love with your best friend. And maybe you already are. Maybe your love relationship you have in your life is like, yeah, this person is really my best friend for life. And that's what really counts, and that's what's really important. That's where the stability is. In the meantime, if you need some extra support during this eclipse, you can certainly contact me at thegoldenastrologer.com. Click book online. You can book an appointment with me. I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer. You can click book now in my profile and set up an appointment. And I'll be on Instagram this week definitely talking about the aspects we have happening with the eclipse, with Venus and Neptune and all of this business going into Leo, and how that feels and how that's going to feel. So I'll be talking more about that, sharing that on Instagram. Also, if you'd like to do a Reiki session with me, and that would help you clear up any, uncomfortable energies that the eclipse may bring, you can certainly book a Reiki session with me at my website or through Instagram the same way. Click book online or book now in my profile and certainly set something up. It's a lovely, beautiful experience, the Reiki. It's really something joyous, and I really recommend it. There's also emotional clearing, which you can get from me also with my new vision system, and we can work on that together. And that's a little more detailed, but you can go through an emotional clearing and manifestation with me as well. And there's always expansion mentoring. If you'd like to spend more time with me, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, I welcome you to that as well. Just connect with me, info@thegoldenastrologer.com, deb@debmcbride.com. I hope you have a beautiful Leo eclipse. I hope you enjoy yourself and just experience the joy of Leo, because Leo is a joyous sign, and release what is not meant to be around anymore, and release what you don't need and what's holding you back, and definitely create something new in this new process that we're entering. This is the first of the 2 eclipses. When the eclipse happens on Wednesday, it opens the eclipse corridor, which is not the path of the eclipse. This is the eclipse corridor that I always say, don't do new things. Wait till the second eclipse happens, then you can start building on the new. Thank you for listening. Gratitude to each and every one of you. Sending blessings, sending love on this eclipse. Have a beautiful week. Thank you.